some stage. Put us on a wide shot. And we are live. Alex Davidson, hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Welcome.
Thank
welcome
you.
to Dunedin. Came down all the way from Auckland to our beautiful little town on a beautiful day after a snow day.
Yeah.
Not a full snow day, a partial snow day. Flying over those Alps must have been gorgeous.
Yes, very nice. Nice and clear this morning.
And thanks for coming down.
Yeah, no worries. We're really pleased to be here.
Yeah, we've just we'll just say it now as well. There is a little bit of, we had this a couple of days ago, a little bit of construction going on in the space that we are using, a couple of studios down. So if you do hear any of that buzzing or whirring or anything in the background, it's people using tools that I don't know the names of.
Yeah,
because that's not. Jason knows the name of all the tools because he is that way inclined. I do not know the names of any of the tools unless it's a hammer. Yep. But they're not because they use and things.
Yeah, those are beyond the hammer.
Those are the actual technical names for them anyway.
So. Good,
yeah.
Hey, thanks for coming down. So I found you online and I saw you guys were creating a bit of a buzz with your company and your very boring phone.
Yeah.
The boring phone. So first of all, there is so much to talk about with this.
Yeah.
Because the boring phone is basically a dumb phone.
Well, I'd stop you there and say not quite dumb.
Okay.
There's a smartphone, and then the other end of the spectrum is dumb.
Okay. Well, just so the difference. I mean, I always thought about it. Basically, a dumb phone was a non-smartphone.
Yeah, that's sort of one way of thinking. But we're sort of trying to get this idea that it's somewhere in the middle.
Okay.
Because it's still internet connected.
Okay.
And so it still has a camera. It still has, podcasts. It still has the processor and everything. So it's not quite at the dumb end.
Well, Jason, can you, if you do this for us, Jason, I probably should have set this up before if I was a professional. Just Google dumb phones available in New Zealand, and you'll get some Nokias and something like that. And we'll have a look at them, and then we'll talk about the difference between yours and theirs. Like Vodafone, I know you can buy dumb phones from places like
definitely.
the Warehouse, and they're really cheap. They're $30, and some parents are using those for their kids because it doesn't have the social media and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are the sorts of things.
Yeah, so look, the 5 best dumb phones over there on the click on that top. Yeah, click on that one. Just have a look what they are.
That's the sort of. There's basically the old Nokia 3310.
But these are still available now. Yep. But the thing is, you're saying the difference is they are not internet capable. They're basically just phones, are they?
There varies. There are some that are that size and they actually do have the internet on it, and it's just really difficult and unpleasant to use.
Yeah,
I just had that this week. My iPhone battery died. And so after like 6 years of, having an iPhone in my pocket every day,
I went to
this like little, I had this little Samsung which was internet connected, but it was so old that no websites launched.
Oh, really?
Wow. Even Facebook Lite app, which it could actually download, it could barely run. And that's sort of. It's it was a nightmare.
Those are the sort of the two types. One is that they do have the internet and they do have a lot of apps, but the screen is so small and low resolution, it's really hard to use.
Yep.
And then there's the other one, which I like, the Nokia 3310. They literally just have texting and a phone book and calling.
So that's what we're calling a dumb phone.
Yeah, that's what I'd say is the dumb is at the end that they don't have any smartphone. So smartphone functions, I think, are things like a good camera.
Okay.
Or things like that.
Well, I guess that's another question, isn't it? What defines a smartphone?
Yeah.
So yours is called the boring phone.
Yes.
It's a great name because I think when I put you up on Facebook, I was like, come and we're going to be talking to people about their boring phone. Yeah. Or the people at the boring office about their boring phone.
Yeah. Were
you tempted to do flamethrowers though?
Yeah, no, that I only realised that after it come out that Elon Musk has his boring company.
His is the boring company. Are you the boring phone company? Is that what you are officially?
Or is it
a product?
It's the product, really.
So the product is the boring phone.
Yeah.
The company is something different.
Yeah, I mean we have a limited liability, but we're sort of trading as a boring phone at the moment because that's the focus. I saw the Elon Musk thing, but he's boring as in literally boring a hole under the ground. So that's why that's the joke of it. I figured once I saw that. So
and this is the phone?
Yeah, this is the phone. So this is
squiz?
Yeah, definitely.
Now this is always the thing that we got to do. We got to hold it up to the camera by my face. When I put anything by my face, the sales fall. They plummet. So maybe I should do that. Is that better, Jose?
A little bit further. There we go.
Sweet.
So this looks and feels, and there you go. I'm doing intuitive things like a smartphone.
Yeah, I mean, if you swipe up, you can see what apps are available.
Okay, so I've got there's an audio one, there's a calculator, a calendar, a camera, clock, contacts, lots of C's there.
Yep.
Files, FM radio.
Yeah, there you go. So if you want to listen to the radio.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a key thing.
Probably. Can you get on that, Jace, or is that a bit too dark?
The key thing that doesn't have is an application store. So
no app store, so no iOS store, no Google Play.
No. So that's sort of already you're whatever's on it is what you've got, and that's the difference. So we're so used to sort of customizing it and changing things around to get it sort of exactly personalized. But you don't. You just get the essential tools, and that's it.
Okay. So it can't. I mean, there's going to be a million questions, but one of the questions is, does that mean it's going to become obsolete quite quickly?
Well, not really, because you still need a camera, a phone, maps to navigate. Those are things that are tools that are going to exist. You know, a lot of the smartphone things we think of as essential are not really. And that one of the really interesting things is seeing the emails and messages that come in when people say, oh, you know, does it have this? And interestingly, the number one is Spotify. So people
play music.
To play music. So it does have MP3s on it. But you know, I'm sort of older school, so I've got a whole bunch of MP3 files I can put on it, and I'm happy.
So what about? I mean, like iTunes is shutting down their store. Yeah. I mean, so it is going to be MP3 moving forward is going to basically become obsolete in the music market. Yeah,
I mean it is. The reason we didn't. I mean, there's two reasons we didn't put Spotify on. One is that it's not open source or free, so you actually would have to have permission from Spotify to put it on the phone.
So you, as the boring phone, would need permission.
Yeah, because it's.
And would that cost, or would that just be a?
No, I think they would give it to people, because then they'd sell subscriptions. Sure. But we're not at the scale where they're interested in having a chat. We did see if we could have a chat with them, and they didn't seem keen at all. So. And then the second one is that a lot of the thing that we're pushing back against is having your phone as a constant advertising device. And the thing with Spotify is it's all well and good if you pay for the subscription. But their model is that it's freemium, so you get the free service, and they will play you a whole bunch of ads in between, and then they'll sort of eventually they'll offer you like $1 a month for 4 months or something like this, and you can try it. And then if you then go off that, then they really hammer you with the ads. They really they're like, oh, we know you've got a credit card, we know you can afford it, but you just don't want to pay for it. So you know, we'll play the ads, and it's that kind of behavior modification.
And at the same time, because they serve up ads, I think they have a built-in browser within their own app too, so you can circumvent the no browser on the phone thing by using their built-in brauser to access.
That's a good point. I hadn't even a lot of apps actually have a browser in them, so you have to watch out for that.
It's interesting. I mean, it's going to be interesting talking to you about it. So you know, my phone is completely full of apps. Although it's not too bad, 1.5 pages. You know, but you know,
that's low on the lower end.
Yeah. But Spotify, for example, I just paid for. Because I've got 3 children who love music, and you pay for it, and you can have 5 accounts. So I just paid for it.
You know, and it's fair enough. It's not so much they have the streaming music. That's not an issue at all, and that's not really something that you're going to get addicted into looking at your phone and fiddling with beyond a certain point. It's more that model of we'll give you something free, but at the back end there's a cost that we're not that honest about, or that they kind of try to hide a little bit. And that's the thing that, you know, all of these, you know, Google, Facebook, all of these services which seem to be free, they seem so great, and we're really now starting to think, well, hang on a second, you know, Facebook is one of the most profitable companies in the world.
Well, isn't that the model? It's the way you measure it is, if the service is free, you are the product.
Yeah, and that's it. And people are starting to get beyond, you know, people sort of, you know, that was largely a joke, but now people are starting to go, you know, hang on a second, what does that actually mean? And start to kind of resent that.
Have you seen, there's a bit of a segue, but have you seen the Hacked on Netflix?
Yeah, definitely.
I haven't watched that yet.
Got it queued up to watch, but with the Cambridge Analytica thing, that looks...
Yeah, no, definitely would recommend everybody has a look at that.
Let's just do this again. Just come back to me here, Jace. So I've got an iPhone X Plus. Is that what it is? I don't even know. With Darth Vader on the back.
You'll never be a tech reviewer.
No.
so you know, slightly imprecise on your review there.
So the mystique and the coolness of having sort of a smartphone.
Yeah.
You know, a kid having this in their bag or whatever and pulling it out, actually, it looks like a smartphone. It looks like hearing our smartphone. It looks like, I mean, is that something that's important?
Yeah.
Is there an embarrassment factor for people having a dumb phone or a lesser able smartphone?
Yeah, there is. So there's a couple of things going into that, and one is that if you pull it out, if you talked about that watch model or that's available for children, which is sort of like
that was before we started.
I mean, if you pull up a picture of it and have a look at it, and then you sort of think about at what age would a child want to stop wearing that, and think about that, especially given the kind of.
So it was Spark that came out. Yeah. They didn't come out with the product. I'm sure they got it from China or something.
Yeah.
But basically, you could program this watch to call mum and dad, and that's about it.
Yeah. I mean, it looks all right in that kind of picture. It's a picture of when you see someone wearing it, but they generally just.
Is that the New Zealand one? Is that the Spark one?
Yeah, that looks.
Yeah. I think they've updated their.
They've updated the design of it a wee bit, but
Space Dog Kids Watch.
You know, I mean, if you imagine going to intermediate with that. And our kid's got the iPhone 10, and you've got that. Who's the cool kid?
Yeah, that does also make you. I mean, this is part of the conversation.
Yeah, I mean, look at that. I mean, not to be rude, but that's inviting bullying, I think.
There is a massive part of this conversation for me about what we expect and need and our kids should have sort of thing now. Like there was that, maybe you could Google this, Jace. You're going to have a busy day today. Google we'll just call you Google Jace from now on. There was a principal the other day who said if your kids are under 12, they should be getting walked to school. Fuck off. Yeah. That's ridiculous.
Was that sort of that mollycoddling?
Yeah. And I mean, I remember, I'm really old. Right. And I remember... I probably got my first my first phone when I was maybe 18, 19.
Yeah.
University. Yeah. Nothing at school. And I remember a friend of mine who lived in Tauranga and used to travel between Auckland and Tauranga. She got a phone similar time, and she was married, and she said the reason she got her phone was safety driving between Auckland and Tauranga.
Yeah.
And I just remember... You've done that 1,000 times. Yeah. And it's never been a problem. Is it really what you need a phone for today? And this is what I'm thinking about kids and stuff in this day and age. Do we really need to have connections with all our kids all the time? And I'm thinking about littlies.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say in my day, because now my kids walk to school now.
Yeah.
My 9-year-old and 5-year-old, they're older now, but when we moved to Dunedin, walk to school by themselves.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of the technology we're using is necessary, or how much has come about from the generation that have become helicopter parents, and that whole wrapping your kids up in cotton wool and stuff. It's like, honestly,
that's a big
it might be a digression. I'm sorry to sort of digress but that really did frustrate me, the thing about the 12-year-olds having to be walked to school.
Yeah,
it's ridiculous.
Well, the idea of whether children need a cell phone at all is pretty an open question. If they're being dropped off at the school and then picked up at the school. Yeah, they're always being.
Do you get asked that? Do parents and stuff go, when's the right time? I mean, you must be seen as a little bit of a phone expert at the moment, mustn't you?
Not really. I mean, the interesting thing I saw was that the movement was wait till 8. So that was sort of given as
8.
Yeah, saying that wait till 8, as an 8 is that
8 is the starting point.
That's the sort of the start, the kind of conversation that's out there. And people are not really asking us. People are already coming because they've already had that discussion. It's a big one, but there's social pressure on children to have a phone.
I'm still thinking 8.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah.
8. So that's like your 3rd year of primary school, 3rd or 4th year.
Well, to me, that's a bit nuts to give a child, especially an unrestricted smartphone at that age.
Well, this is the thing now as well. I mean, we talked about dumb phones and stuff a bit earlier, but actually, those are much harder to get your hands on because there are so much fewer of them than a smartphone. So then to say... You're putting, without restriction, and not your phone, obviously, but many. Just pick up mine, so I don't misrepresent yours. And I'm not saying a kid's going to have this at 8.
Well, you'd be surprised parents pass down the phone.
Right, true. So maybe in 2 years' time, this will be an 8-year-old's phone.
Yeah, because the parents
that's got enough power in it to launch a satellite.
Yep.
And to see anything you want to see on the internet.
Yep.
At 8 years old.
Yeah, by yourself in your room. Able to access not just any content, to access any person, and any person to access you. This
is the thing. I used to do some work with the guys who used to run a company called Parents Inc.
Right.
Then it changed to Parenting with Confidence, and then the Parenting Place. I think Ian Grant.
Oh yeah.
Used to do some radio with him. I used to be his tech guy, and he used to talk about the old rule used to be, have your computer in the lounge area, so parents can keep an eye on what their kids are doing. And now it's like
past that now.
This is 10 times more powerful than that 486DX would have been.
Yeah, and the other thing to think about is maybe your child is relatively on the straight and narrow, but think about what is the worst child at school showing on the cell phone to the other kids at playtime. What's that they found? I mean, I would, like you, I kind of grew up before there was, but the stuff that some of the kids would
the magazines they pull out of their bags and
some
show
kids
around
have
that kind of
access,
stuff.
and there's always someone whose parents didn't care what movies they watched and encouraged that. Well, now that's just on another scale. And
actually, that genie's out of the bottle.
Yeah,
you can't go backwards.
No,
because actually your phone, the boring phone, doesn't actually solve that problem because the kid who's got the, has got the phone who's showing around pictures anyway can still do that.
They can still do it, but it's about even the fact that some of the kids at the school might not have that there is another way. At the moment, there's very, very little. There's either you kind of say to your kid, well, look, you can have like a really dumb phone, you can wear a watch, which can only call mum and dad, and every other kid is going to know that your parents are
mummy and daddy's cool.
What we need is like more good guys with smartphones, less bad guys with smartphones.
That's
the only way you're going to stop
the only way to stop a bad guy with a smartphone is a good guy. Is a good guy with a smartphone.
So we should be giving out smartphones to children.
If every kid has a smartphone,
then we've solved it. That was easy.
Yeah, that was good. There you go. Subtle.
So this is
but it's just that at the moment there's this idea that everyone has to have it and that it's a normal thing for everyone to have it and to be on it and be connected all the time. But we've got to that place without ever thinking, is that actually good? Is that actually what we want? We sort of just ended up there sort of de facto.
Yeah.
We kind of went from those clunky, slow smartphones through to these completely large screens and everything, and this huge amount of time we spend on it without ever thinking, how much time do I want to spend? No one thinks when they get a new phone, right, how much time do I want to spend on this per week?
Okay, let's do screen time, Jace.
Yeah,
because let's do it now.
While you open that up, I can tell my quick little because as I said, my phone the battery died, so I had to wait for my new phone to arrive that I ordered online, and so I had 6 days without a smartphone.
How was that?
And it was weird because I'm certainly pretty standard when it comes to spending a lot of time on Facebook and Insta and stuff like that. But at the same time, during the day it's only in my pocket, and so I'm just doing that on my computer. But still one device or the other. But I found interestingly, me and my wife, we always go to bed at the same time. We finish watching Netflix or doing whatever we're doing, and we go to basically go to bed. We go to bed at the same time.
Sweet.
Isn't this so sweet? Thanks. But often she would be sitting on the phone in the lounge. I'd go get ready for bed, get into bed sort of thing, and then I'd be in bed for maybe 10-15 minutes, and then she'd hop into bed as well. And I'd just be, I knew that she'd do that. She goes and checks on our daughters and and make sure they're okay before she gets into bed. And while she's doing that, I'm sitting on my phone waiting for her to come to bed. Checking Facebook, checking Insta, checking the news on Twitter. I couldn't do that.
No.
And so I was, for the first night, I just sort of sat in bed and went, when's she coming to bed? What's going on? Like, what's she taking us so long? And the next night, I had to actually almost stand at the door and say, "Hey, are you coming to bed now?" I don't want to have to lie in bed with nothing to do.
Because I'm not entertained.
You raise a really good point there, and that is that because everyone is using their smartphone as their alarm clock, you charge it by your bed.
And that was the other thing I did. I spent 15 minutes trying to figure out how to set the alarm on my alarm clock, because I do still have a bedside lock because I like to wake up at night and see what time it is, but I had to spend 15 minutes trying to figure out how to set the damn alarm.
It's hard, but I'd say it's worth it, because that's one of the traps that leads you into using it, and normalising it, the amount of usages that it's literally last thing you look at night, and then the first thing in the morning, which we know is not great for sleep.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we try to have at our house, we not always successfully, but we charge the cell phones that you actually take the cable and put it in another room. And get that one of those old school alarm clocks and have it next to your bed.
So are you going to do your screen time? I'll do mine. So on my screen time, this is where the excuses come out. My screen time is always a bit off because I listen to dozens of hours of podcasts.
It doesn't count the podcast time.
Entertainment though, I do it on YouTube. So I watch all my news and stuff.
It would count.
So actually, for the past 7 days, social networking's been 4 hours and other has been 53 minutes.
Okay.
I don't have screen time on, so I didn't turn it on.
Today I've been on social networking for 12 minutes, but then again,
it's
only 11 in the morning.
That's pretty good. So what's your average for the week?
My average for the overall time is 3 hours and 58 minutes, but entertainment, being YouTube, is 16 hours.
16, yeah.
So it's the biggest part of it. And as I say, if you look at my YouTube feed, everything is news and current affairs and looking up things like boring phones.
Yeah, well, that's a legitimate use, so we encourage that.
I was going to say half of my social media this week has been the giveaway that you enabled.
Yeah, no, that's fine.
That's
that's positive use, so we're quite happy with that.
So, what was the reason you did this? Have you seen a gap in the market and it's a business thing? Is this an issue for society you want to help with? What's background for the boring phone for you?
The story that we tell, which is the truth of it, is that I looked at what my smartphone usage was, and it was getting a lot, and just filling in every little moment, and so I started looking and started tracking it, and when I started tracking it was about 25 to 35 hours a week.
Wow.
That's not uncommon. That's the average. The average is 20 hours per week. So I wasn't actually at the high end of it, but it was to me a lot, and so I thought that I would try to cut down on it, and that's the thing that anyone who's actually tried to do that knows is pretty futile, really, because the pull to do it is so strong, and the habit is so strong, and the sort of social license to do it. You remember it was only a couple of years ago that we used to think, if you get your phone out and look at it while I'm talking to you, it's incredibly rude.
Yeah.
That was about 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
No.
No.
We're gonna have a look at some stage at a guy called Simon Sinek.
Yeah.
And what I do is with my kids, he's talking about millennials in the workplace.
Yeah.
But what I do with my kids is every now and again I take them and I show them about an 8-minute chunk of it, which is him talking about millennials when it comes to specifically use of technology, specifically around phones. And I remember one of the point he made was, if you're having like a meal with someone, or you're out with someone and your phone's on the table, then you have a problem.
Yeah.
He goes, even if it's face down.
No, it doesn't make a difference. And that having that permission to use it means it's very easy. So I tried to cut down using different apps and turning my screen to grayscale and.
Well, they do that with the whole out to dinner thing, don't they? I've seen people that you put your phones all in a pile, and the first person to touch their phone has to pay for dinner.
Yeah, well, that would slow down some people.
Well, there's another one again. Back to the Simon Sinek thing, which we'll get to at some stage. He says when they go out at night, like him and all his mates, they take one phone.
Yeah.
And like that, so they can call their Uber, so they can but there's only one phone, and the rest of them leave their phones at home.
Yeah, no, you got to start thinking creatively and actually actively doing things. You can't just think, I use my phone a bit much, I should use it a bit less, because nothing will happen.
And the other thing is where this generation coming up after us and the one after them, I guess, is going. So my daughter had her Dungeons and Dragons friends over on Sunday, which was great.
Cool.
4 or 5 kids playing Dungeons and Dragons. That's what they do.
Yeah.
They played for a while. They got a bit bored with it. I walked into the lounge and there was 4 of them all looking at their screens.
Yeah.
And my daughter was looking at her computer.
Yep.
And I literally went, screen, computer, maybe we're finished for the day.
Yeah.
Because you guys could do this from home.
Yeah.
Oh, no, we're having fun. It's like they're actually literally sitting on the couch, looking at their phones with their friend beside them, interacting with their phone.
And that's where that addictive component comes in, and that it's very, very hard. Every app on your phone and every website, their goal is to increase the amount of time that you spend on it.
Yeah.
And they have billions of hours of user data to know exactly what will keep you there the longest.
Yeah.
I was thinking the other day, which was interesting. We've got the rules around gambling. There's still the rule that you can't go to the casino until you're 21.
Yeah.
Right, because we've as a society decided that gambling is so dangerous and that you can't, not even at 18 you're allowed to drink, but you've got to wait to 21 before you could possibly look at the pokie machine. Yeah. And yet you have games that use the exact same technology as the pokie machine, which are the most popular kids games.
I remember they did an expose, a report on Candy Crush.
Yeah.
And some of the things they said were the colours and the noises, but also the affirmation.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Yeah.
And that's what kept people in. And I remember it was a few years ago, but the story was talking, and a woman was speaking in the story, and she was saying she went on holiday, like to a beautiful tropical island, and ended up spending 3, 4, 5 hours every day playing Candy Crush because it drew her in. And
it does. It just gives you that kind of uneven dopamine.
Yeah.
Hit that comes through that is addictive, and we recognise it's so addictive that you don't want anyone under 21 to be exposed to it. And then we go and miniaturize it, put it on a phone, and give it to a child.
So let's have a look. Can we look at one of these Simon Sinek's, Jace? We've got a couple queued up, and actually, there's one of the messages, the one that starts at 3:05, where he's actually talking about dopamine.
and our cell phones releases a chemical called dopamine. That's why when you get a text, it feels good, right? So, we've all had it where you're feeling a little bit down or feeling a bit lonely, and so you send out 10 texts to 10 friends, hi, 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 because it feels good when you get a response, right? Right? It's why we count the likes. It's why we go back 10 times to see if my Instagram is growing slower. Did I do something wrong? Do they not like me anymore? Right? The trauma for young kids to be unfriended, right? Because we know when you get a hit of dopamine, which feels good. It's why we like it. It's why we keep going back to it. Dopamine is the exact same chemical that makes us feel good when we smoke, when we drink, and when we gamble. In other words, it's highly, highly addictive. Right? We have age restrictions on smoking, gambling, and alcohol, and we have no age restrictions on social media and cell phones, which is the equivalent of opening up the liquor cabinet and saying to our teenagers, hey, by the way, this adolescence thing, if it gets you down.
So there you go. So it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So he's basically putting out there that giving your kids, your teenagers, your whatever, free access to the phone is the equivalent of giving them free access to the liquor cabinet because it creates the same dopamine response.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's possibly harder to detect, but it's in the same. I mean, if your child discovers alcohol at an early age, you'll notice it. And there's an added difficulty.
Well, no,
Well, depending on how cunning they are.
Well, still,
if they fill it back up with tea up to the line that you've drawn on the bottle, that kind of trick.
That sounds like it's coming from a place of knowing.
No idea. But. Yeah, the other thing that goes into that is that often parents are just as addicted to their phones as their children. So it's very it's very hard. You're hard pressed to say to your child, well, you should be spending less time on your phone. And actually, children are often the ones that are saying that their parents spend too much on the phone. There's that whole thing about mummy, look at me, look at my trick on the swing. And the mothers and the fathers are sitting there at the playground looking at their phones and not at the kids anymore.
I do wonder about how we're raising our kids and the generation responsible one back. Yeah. And I remember when I used to work on ZB, there'd be the boomers phoning up and talking about the terrible Gen Xers.
Yep.
And so I would often say to this 60-year-old boomer I was talking to, so whose fault is this?
Yeah.
Basically pointing out, you raised us.
Yeah.
You put into the next generation the values and the what to value and what to deem important, that's causing them to be this little shit that you're seeing today. So actually, how much responsibility do you have to what you see in the generation after you? And I think about that with this as well. Like, I hear, I don't want this to turn into a yay me, because I'm not saying I've got any answers at all. But my kids don't charge phones in their bedrooms.
Yeah, no, that's a really important one.
They charge them in their lounge.
Yep.
Actually, my eldest has a laptop, and laptop's basically not allowed in their bedroom.
Yep.
They do workout in the in the dining room.
Yep.
That's where it is. I don't really restrict her if she's got stuff to do. She does use it for a toy. I'm not like a monster.
Yeah.
But they don't charge them in there. And I've got this thing, Jace. Maybe you can Google this. I tell my friends, all your friends are going to hate me. Because my kids' friends come over, like if it's a sleepover or something, and I make them put their phones in the lounge. I'm like, we don't have phones in the bedroom here at night time. Sorry, it doesn't happen. Jace, can you look up the app Our Pact, OURPACT? I use this on I've got two eldest, they're both at secondary school. They both got phones. I use this on their phone,
right?
And this enables me to restrict apps.
Yep.
And this enables me to restrict time.
Yep.
And this enables me to do all those things. And I have the opportunity to turn them on, turn them off.
Yep.
It costs, but that is my version of a
is
internet. Not what are we calling this if it's not a dumb phone?
Well, it's in the middle. It's a boring
phone. Okay, that's my version of the boring phone.
Yeah.
And you can see, stop there, Jace. See that one there? So you can put time restrictions on it. You can do all these things. Scroll up a bit more to the next one on the right there, so that you can actually put limits. So what we did during the school holidays, I didn't worry so much about the restrictions of apps, but I said you ain't being on your phone for any more than 2 hours a day. So I put the hourly restriction on it. And look, my eldest is 15, and many people might look at me and think, well, she's old enough to look after it. But I'm like, I'm not giving my 15-year-old a bottle of vodka.
No.
To use as they want.
And then just telling them, just don't drink too much of that.
And the 13-year-old is the same. So this is what I use.
Yeah.
I'd like to know as well for you, and this is what I've been thinking about for you. Maybe you could find some people to work with. Is the next iteration of the boring phone you providing a boring app?
Yeah, no, that's a very good point, and we did look at that. And the initial there were two parts. One was my desire to have a product like this, which doesn't exist.
Yep.
And the other one was Jasper, who has his children, and that the problem I find is that if you're using it for yourself, so I imagine in theory you could take that program and use it to restrict your own amount of usage, right?
Yep.
But because you're the one that set it up and pay for it, you could also unset it up.
Sure.
And that's what I found when I tried any apps that would restrict my usage, is that I would come up with some reason that I really needed to look at the internet, and often it would be quite a valid. I need to some banking or something that seemed important.
Yep.
Disable it, and then while I've disabled it, I'll have a look at something else, and then very quickly the old habits come back, and.
So what you're saying is the reason the boring phone over a boring app is that you can't get around this.
Yeah.
There's no get around.
There's no get around, and the to me,
except for the iPads you've got in your bag.
Well, yeah. I mean, there is that, but to still having a separate thing. The thing that's important in using the alcohol analogy, it's like if you were trying to quit drinking, which would you say would be better? Would it be better to keep the alcohol and put a lock on the cabinet and then put the key in an envelope and write "Do not"?
Yep.
We're not drinking, right?
Sure.
Put that in the shelf. Or would it be better to get rid of the alcohol?
So what this actually does, the boring phone, the concept of this is that it's not. It is a parenting device.
That's one of the applications.
But it's more than that. Whereas the thing that I use is a parenting device.
Yeah, and there's just a world of difference between a phone that has all of the bells and whistles hidden away and under a lock, and a phone that physically doesn't have it on it. So if you get in a weak moment and you decide, I'm sick of this boring phone nonsense, I don't want it, I'm just going to re-enable everything. You can't. It's not on there.
Yeah, sure.
You have to go and get another device.
There's no get around.
Yeah, and so I mean, what I will do is I do have an iPad that I might use, and I can use tethering on the phone because it does data hotspot. But when you turn that on, you get out another device and you do it. It's much harder to do that unconsciously than it is when it's on your phone that's in your pocket.
Well, the big question, obviously...
Did you intentionally choose... Because you can get an iPad with 4G on it and 5G on it.
Yeah.
Did you intentionally choose to get an iPad with just Wi-Fi so that you had to go through that extra step?
No, I just already had an iPhone. I already had that. But it is adding in that step, and then... I don't know about you, but I also feel like worried when I do tethering that the other device is going to try and download an update of like 1.5 gigs and burn all my data. So you then have an incentive just to get on, find what it is you need, and then go off.
I think the question everyone wants to know, and Jason will back me up on this, I'm sure, is if you've got a boring phone, how do your bowels work?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You'll have to think your thoughts.
Because, I don't think my bowels can work at the moment without a smartphone.
I don't even know what we used to do, but that's actually it's.
Speak for your own bowels. I'm quite.
It depends on how long that involves for you. But one of the really interesting things about using this that I found, well, the first thing I did was I just got a regular phone, rooted it, and deleted all the apps.
Yep.
Which is effectively the same.
Yep.
Thing is that you just don't realize how much of your little moments you're filling with your phone.
Yeah.
Every time you're waiting to make a cup of tea, whatever it is, your phone is out and you're in the lift, you're going to have a look. You're waiting for someone to pick you up. All these times, and actually, if you stop filling that with times, and then initially you'll have a panic where your brain will be like
Jason bed.
Yeah, sitting in bed going that. Well, what you find if you actually go past say a week of it, you'll find either you might put a book next to your bed which you would read, but more importantly is in the really small times you actually just start thinking about your day. And you think, wow, this morning I did this and I did that.
Yeah, I was going to say that because I, as a creative guy, I've worked in the creative industries my entire life, and I've had this conversation several times with my wife and other people that if you don't, and it's again very, very applicable to kids as well. You need to be bored.
Yeah,
it's a very important thing to be bored, because when you're bored, your mind wanders, your creativity wanders, your subconscious can process things, you can overcome issues, you can be a little bit. It's almost kind of what nowadays is called mindfulness.
Yeah,
it's just back then you didn't have something to fill
up. You didn't have that,
and so you just had a time to go, I wonder why. Yeah. And let your mind wander and daydream, and so people just don't daydream anymore.
No, and that's a huge thing.
They're on Facebook and Instagram.
That's a massive thing that we've lost without even realizing. It's that allowing that space for something to come out of your mind, we've got very into consuming. You say consumer culture, and we always think about like buying things, but it's not just the buying things, it's just consuming. So there's an endless amount of content for us to consume. It's basically more than you could possibly watch in a lifetime now in terms of videos, podcasts, and things. And so you're just continually feeding your mind with the newest ones of those, and you never let your mind have a chance to process it, think about it, and go, here's something back out of it.
There's this element as well, and I agree with what you're saying, Jace, but also the idea of being bored without all those creative payoffs, just being bored.
Yeah.
Like I tell my kids all the time, when I used to finish cricket practice at St. Peter's College, and I'd be sitting on Khyber Pass, waiting for the bus to come, I'd just sit and wait for the bus to come.
Yeah.
And they're like, what? It's like, I didn't. I mean, like if I had a book, I'd read it.
Yep.
Perhaps if I had some work to do that I could do on my lap, I'd do it.
Yep. But
generally, you're waiting at the bus stop at 5 o'clock on a Thursday night for 40 minutes. You're just sitting there waiting.
Yeah.
And this is probably the wrong way to say it.
Yeah.
But that's sort of a skill.
Yeah.
That
these days, definitely.
That kids need and people need. Like I actually sometimes find that. Like I've got my lounge. I'm lucky enough to work from home most of the time. My lounge gets beautiful sun in the afternoon. It comes flooding through the door, especially on a day like today in Dunedin, which it's about 8 degrees outside, and yesterday when it snowed.
Yeah.
And I find sometimes in the afternoon, I'll just like to lie in the sun. Not listen to anything, not watch anything, just lie there in the sun 10, 15, 20 minutes and just be.
Yeah.
And that idea of just being, I think, is something that's disappearing.
It's that, there's that long period of just allowing your mind to do whatever. And that gets harder and harder because the other thing that cell phones do is this attention switching, is that we get everything packaged into smaller and smaller units of attention. So your average sort of meme will take you 2 seconds to fully get, and you'll be on to the next. And I don't know about you, but when I was a kid, my parents are probably more to the extreme. We didn't have a TV till I was 14, so I really had no option but to read if I wanted to fill the time.
Yeah.
And I used to read everything, and just any book I would just go and pick them out from the library and get it. And then as I got older, I realised I wasn't reading. And after you've been at there's a period after uni where you kind of resent reading, so you have a little break. But then I started trying to read and finding that I just could, it was a real struggle. Because when I was a kid, I would sit and read for 2 hours, like 3 hours.
Yeah, I think that about my girls now, especially my eldest. She is someone who I remember very clearly. She was reading a book, it was probably, what's that, 1.5 inches thick.
Yeah.
And she came out and the marker was halfway through it.
Yeah.
And I made some kind of dumb dad joke about, you're just making it look like you've read a lot of your book. And she went, Dad, I started reading this yesterday. And I was like, what? I'm like, what page are you on? And she's like 196. Yeah. And in the space of a day, less than a day, she'd read 200 pages.
Yeah.
And I was literally just thinking the other day, I wonder if it might sound again like I'm an ogre. I'm going to have to instigate or instill into the house, guys, this is reading time. Yeah. Because I know that all of my kids love to read, but given the opportunity of a dopamine, colourful, option B, you know what they're going to do. And then is she going to get to university and maybe not hate reading, but it's a skill.
It's a skill to be able to concentrate on something for an hour and actually focus. And there's a really good point that one of the first people, I can't remember his name, one of the reverends who had written about Lent and giving up things, and he was saying he went to see the latest Mission Impossible movie with Tom Cruise. With the helicopter.
He went to see it with Tom Cruise,
or
he went to see it and Tom Cruise was in it.
I don't think Tom Cruise is his personal friend.
I was just checking that out
because it was that one where Tom Cruise learned how to fly a helicopter because that's the most practical way to do that stunt.
Right.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was in there watching, and this is the top of the line, most expensive, movie, and people were pulling out their phones and checking their phones in it. So basically, it doesn't. There's no entertainment that in itself will hold people's attention for an hour because we just don't have that, and that's a real big loss. It's another thing that we just haven't quite realised. And one of the big groups that have been really interested in this phone is guys who are 30 to 50, who I think can remember the time when they didn't have their phone, and they can remember what they used to do, and they're the ones that are like, hang on. Whereas it was such a subtle shift, we didn't realise that suddenly we weren't having daydreams or reflections or thinking about your day. We weren't reading.
I was thinking that the other day. I was having another conversation with my wife, and it was just that. What on earth? Because I'm old enough to definitely remember a time before the internet, but I cannot remember what it was like in a way. I can remember what it was like, but at the same time I can't, because
it's hard to think.
I'm just like, if the internet got turned off in my house for a week and I didn't have my phone to be able to access it wirelessly, with 4G and stuff, what would I do? Our TV doesn't receive a UHF signal, so we do, because we rely solely on Netflix, and it's just like, what would I do without being able to? Because I was like, if I think about something, I Google it, and that sort of thing. And it's just like, I mean, what do you do?
I mean, it's not. I don't want to come across like the guy saying that none of this stuff is good, because a lot of it's we were just talking about the cameras you use, and when I was a kid, you just couldn't access that. You could dream about accessing a broadcast quality camera. Was the same as a house in Mount Eden.
I started in the industry just before the cusp of this revolution, and so the first camera I owned cost me $8,000, and the picture quality was it's still pretty. It was like decent.
Mini DV or something.
It was just. I know this was the third. So this was the first professional camera I owned. So I'd owned mini DV before. This was the first. It shot to SD, so it was like just it was 1080p. But it was all one big unit, so it was one camera. It certainly wasn't sort of you should use on, but it was good for the sort of freelancer. But it cost $8,000 now for probably what would be the cheapest I could go. Probably $600 new, $500 second hand. I could probably get something that would shoot better.
Yeah, definitely. And so there's that technology that's come along, and then along with that, that's the knowledge. I don't know about you. Remember, if you used to work on a car, you'd have to go and get the Haynes manual and photocopy the pages that you were doing to figure out how to do something. Yeah. Now there's a YouTube. There's a YouTube of everybody doing everything, so you can learn all of it. So that's that great. There's all of these wonderful things that come with it, but there's a cost which also comes along, and that we haven't really looked at, and we haven't really thought about what we're willing to trade off.
I had that 2 weeks ago because I was changing the brake pads on my car, my wife's car, and I couldn't get a screw off.
Yeah, and you look it up,
and so I was just like, how the hell am I getting the screw off? And so I went on YouTube, and there was guys like, having trouble getting the screw off your drum, not just a screw in general, getting the screw off your disc brakes on a Japanese car.
Yeah,
and I was like, yes. And he's like, this is what you need. And I was like, okay, cool. And then after that, jumped on to Googled it, found a place that sold the tool nearby, picked it up, bought it online, click and collect, and within half an hour I had the tool.
So I am listening quite intently, actually, and thinking. I'm not bored.
sorry.
I'm just thinking. And the more I think about it, the more I think about how this is a societal issue.
Yeah.
And the more I think about it, so I was listening to you guys talking about YouTube, and I can juggle. I'm a good juggler.
Yeah.
And my daughter asked me in the last 6 months, how did you learn to juggle?
Yeah.
And I said, I just practiced and went from one ball to another. And she said, did you follow a tutorial on YouTube? I went, oh, no, it was probably 30 years before YouTube came along. And she was like eyes widened. Yeah. And she was like, the kid version of WTF.
Yeah, like, how did you learn anything?
What do you mean before YouTube? It didn't exist. I wonder as well, I think we might watch a second clip from Mr. Sinecki where we start at 442, where he talks about the addiction part of technology. Now, just to set up the context of this, he is talking about millennials in the workplace. Yeah. So the overall clip that he's in isn't necessarily relevant to the conversation we're having, but there are bits from it, especially when he's talking about younger people and technology, which I think are very relevant. And let's just watch it first of all. So this is a bit from 442.
An entire generation that has access to an addictive,
I'm just trying to find it. Was it 442?
442
through social media and cell phones as they're going through the high stress of adolescence. Why is this important? Almost every alcoholic discovered alcohol when they were teenagers. When we're very, very young, the only approval we need is the approval of our parents. And as we go through adolescence, we make this transition where we now need the approval of our peers. Very frustrating for our parents, very important for us. It allows us to acculturate outside of our immediate families into the broader tribe, right? It's a highly, highly stressful and anxious period of our lives, and we're supposed to learn to rely on our friends. Some people, quite by accident, discover alcohol and numbing effects of dopamine to help them cope with the stresses and anxieties of adolescence. Unfortunately, that becomes hardwired in their brains, and for the rest of their lives, when they suffer significant stress, they will not turn to a person, they will turn to the bottle. Social stress, financial stress, career stress, that's pretty much the primary reasons why an alcoholic drinks, right? What's happening is, because we're allowing unfettered access to these dopamine-producing devices and media, basically it's becoming hardwired, and what we're seeing is, as they grow older, too many kids don't know how to form deep, meaningful relationships. Their words, not mine. They will admit that many of their friendships are superficial. They will admit that their friends, that they don't count on their friends, they don't rely on their friends, they have fun with their friends, but they also know that their friends will cancel on them as something better comes along. Deep, meaningful relationships are not there because they never practice the skill set, and worse, they don't have the coping mechanisms to deal with stress. So when significant stress starts to show up in their lives, they're not turning to a person, they're turning to a device, they're turning to social media, they're turning to these things which offer temporary relief. We know, the science is clear, we know that people who spend more time on Facebook suffer higher rates of depression than people who spend less time on Facebook.
Yeah, that'll do
right?
us. So
these things balanced. Alcohol is not bad.
I think that, and he goes on to say alcohol's not bad, too much alcohol's bad, social media's not
bad. I agree with him on that. Yeah.
So I don't want to sound like a pessimist or it's like a fatalist kind of being defeated, but I'm picking up my phone now in case people don't know. These, actually there's no sensitive information on that front screen. These
from your bank. Yeah.
These aren't going anywhere.
No,
they're not going away. Your idea is definitely needed and definitely there. But how do we integrate the best of the boring phone?
Yeah.
Into the psyche of the generation who would rather be rich and lonely than poor with lots of friends, because that's something that's on your Facebook page now.
Yeah, that's what we're looking. And I think the first thing is that as a society realizing that there is an issue, and that's the first thing. And that's what's starting to happen. That's why there are people like Simon Sinek. And it used to be that people would say, "Oh, I'm addicted to my phone, haha." And everyone has some sort of jokes about, uses humor as a diversion to avoid having to deal with it. But people are starting to realize now, actually, the feeling I had with my phone is I started to hate it.
Really?
I started to have the feeling.
You felt how much it was imposing on your life?
Yeah, that I hated how much time I was spending on it and how it was making me. And I don't think I'm the only person who's had that feeling. And I just think sometimes as you get older, you start to recognize what's not good for you. A little bit. You can start to go, hang on, I don't want to be spending my time on this. I think
is this a straight time sucking thing as well, or is it kind of a little bit of just speaking from personal, like the grass is always greener, like a little bit of envy, seeing what your mates are up to, seeing the filtered version of your mates.
That goes into it as well, and I mean that's part of what sort of sucks you into looking at it. But it's just that difficulty in stopping, and I think everybody has had that thing when you think, oh, what's the time, and you look at your phone and be like, oh, I got an alert. And then you go, oh, that reminds me, and then you're on to the next, and you're on to the next, and then you're like, I've been on this an hour.
That was one of the reasons I ended up actually going, because I didn't wear a watch for years, from basically, I think all through university.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I think during university, but like for years after I finished uni, I didn't. But then 6 years ago, I got a watch.
Yeah.
Also because the iPhone that I had at the time, the screen was burning where the clock symbol was, because I was always pulling it out of my, checking the time, putting it back, and so that spot where the clock was got the screen burned.
Well, that's actually not so bad if you look at that. The problem I had was that I would look at it and then get sucked into it.
And so you get sucked in. So now I check my watch rather than my phone.
So there's an interesting movement which you might want to look up called humane tech, which is saying, well, we've got all of these designs at the moment are geared towards increasing your usage time on YouTube. That then means
the algorithm's trying to suck you down the rabbit hole.
That's the design of them. One of the really interesting, talking about dopamine hits, is that an interesting point is that at the moment on a smartphone you get the same buzz, the same vibration notification. It could be a text from a family member that there's an emergency and something bad has happened, right?
Right.
And you also get that exact same buzz because someone that you follow on YouTube has put a new video up.
Right.
And so what it means is that when you get that buzz in your pocket, it's like a mystery prize in a sense. It's like a lucky dip, right?
What have I got now? What's in my pocket?
And the magic of it is because you don't know. It could be something really bad. It could be something really good. It could be something meaningless.
But you have to check.
You have to check, and it's random as to when they come in. And so one of the things I say, well, hang on a second. For starters, you can turn off all the notifications of things that don't require attention. Secondly, you can make it that your family members, if they text you or message you, there's a distinct buzz, right?
Right, yeah.
So now that if you go buzz buzz, oh well, I know you can even have multiple ones. You know that's your partner or that's your child. So I'm not going to look at that.
I did that when my wife was pregnant with our first kid because I was on a big TV shoot, and so my phone was always on silent during the day, and so I changed it to going zzz, 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 if it was my wife because she was going into labour, and so everybody else was just zzz, zzz, and like if it was her, it was like a really
good idea.
But the interesting thing is that could be set up now, but they don't. Neither iPhone nor Android set that up.
What, meaning it's not available?
No, you can go in and dig in and your settings and do it, but they could make it the default.
Right.
They could make it the default that alerts are graded essentially by that, and that would make far more sense from a user point of view. But from a point of view of making people use their phone, it doesn't make sense. And so all of this design is tilted towards every little possible.
So what's more evil? Is it the phone manufacturer, so is it Apple, or is it the apps? Because it's not. I wouldn't say it's an evil. It's I'm being facetious, but you know what I mean.
It's like it's commerce, and that is it's they're pushing always towards the maximum profitability, and so that means that but they're all competing, and each iteration is more and more addictive and more time consuming, and they're all pushing in that direction, and that's why there is this humane tech movement. There is people like us with a boring phone that's saying, hang on a second, pay us the money up front for what it is you want, and we'll give it to you and leave you alone. Yep. And once people start realizing, I think it has to come from users. I don't think that they're going to offer it, because why would you, if you made an app and you figured out, if I make this design change, people are 10% happier, but they use the app 10% less.
Right.
They're not going to do it, are they? Because their shareholders will say, hang on a second, our app usage is down 10%, how do we get it back?
Yeah.
What they'll do is they'll do things like Instagram does, which they say, tell us how long you'd like to use on it. We'll tell you, but we won't enforce it because we'll give you, and that's the same with screen time and the similar tools on Android, is that there's these tools there that do it, but it's like the little label on the alcohol bottle that says drink responsibly.
It's or the pictures on the front of the cigarette packet saying this will cause cancer.
Because that's the thing with the screen time that you can set. As you know, my wife did this when it first came out on the iPhone. She's like, oh yeah, I'm going to do this. Yeah. So she set herself a limit for Instagram and social. Yeah. And then she hit it real quick. Oh yeah. And she was like, oh. And so she just turned it off. Yeah. Well, not turned it off, but she was like, okay, and just swipe ignore. Yeah. It's like they actually need to, what you're saying, like, because the phones obviously can do this because they do it with passwords. If you enter the password incorrectly 3 times, you have to wait a minute. If you enter it again, you have to wait 5 minutes. If you enter it again, you have to wait an hour. And so
that's what these humane tech
so there's no way to circumvent it. You can still make an emergency phone call, but that's it.
Well, the design is also about introducing friction that comes up. So the example I use is that you could have a phone that has a browser, and this is the sort of thing we're really interested in, a browser that gets randomly slightly slower and more clunky, and the color leaches out of it the longer you use it. Right?
I like that.
Wow.
Cool. So you get on there, you go to check something, and then it starts like, it's getting slow. I don't know about you, but anyone who's experienced patchy Wi-Fi is far worse than no Wi-Fi, right? That will get you off your phone quicker than...
Because no Wi-Fi, you're like, oh, well, I can't do anything patchy. You're like, come on, speed up!
But if it's in there, there's no reason that phones can't be designed by that. The reason is that the model is, the phone is subsidized by the apps and the app store and all of that, and so... The phones seem really, or by the, when you go to the supermarket, or you can buy a phone which is really cheap because the phone company, Vodafone, gives it to you. It's locked to Vodafone. Yeah. Well, the reason they're willing to do that is because they sell the data, and so they know, oh, yeah, fine, we'll give you the phone for $10 because we know you'll pay the full price of it in 6 months in extra data. So I
found that when I went to try and buy a dumb phone because my phone died, is that I could get a phone for $30 on Vodafone because I'm on 2 degrees, but I had to pay $60 or $50 to get it unlocked to use it on 2 degrees. So
and that's that whole thing of all of these. It's about an upfront design that actually you pay for what it is you want, and then you don't get advertised to, and people are starting to think, actually, I would pay for that.
So you said before,
of course, the phones that we're buying, the companies are selling them at a loss, and so they have to make up the money somehow.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
That's facetious, obviously, because an iPhone does not cost $2,000 to make, I'm sure. But,
no.
Yeah. You said that the boring phone you're looking at, 30 to 50-year-old men Or people in general, men in particular?
Definitely men and professional men as well, often doctors, university, IT guys.
And are they people who are also got another phone typically? Do you research say anything about that?
I think everyone has another phone these
days.
Because
so tell us about your experience today. You had to swap over?
In terms of today, so yeah. So for example, if I'm travelling and I want to use the Air New Zealand app for the ticket, so I can swap the SIM over and use that for today. But when I go back home, I'll swap it back because when I'm at work, I just don't need any of that stuff.
So, is it possible to have a phone? Maybe it's I was going to say a dual SIM phone, but it's almost like a dual software phone where you can have it on a. But then I guess you come back to that same thing that you'll just turn it off.
You will just turn it off.
Yeah.
But I think.
So do you keep the same number though? I mean, I see what would make sense to me is you just have two different phones.
Yeah, you can do that. Or the other one that I'll do if I need something, but I'll just bring the second phone and just use the data tethering and turn the phone on when I need to. If I know I'm going to get an email in the middle of the day that's not work related, then I'll do that. Do
you think there is an evolution of your product, the boring phone, that will then, another iteration which will then maybe include some things which you're beginning to see are handy, like for example the Air New Zealand app?
Yeah, well that's what I mean about that design that actively discourages you from using it. So I'd say if you could buy a phone that the design of the phone, its goal was to be functional, not be used for time wasting. I mean, you could have things like you could have a browser that gives you 15 minutes a day, and then no way around it. Because
I buy this and it's basically a closed circuit. This is it.
Yep.
If you develop some more software, that let's say did that browser for 15 minutes, do you have the capacity to then send that out to all the phones?
Yeah, we do. So that was one of the things that Jasper, who's the tech guy and business partner on it, he figured out is that we can do remote updates.
So you're like Elon Musk and send out software to the Teslas.
Yeah,
you
exactly
guys can
like
do
that.
You can do it from your end.
Yeah, so it's important for security in case something's discovered, but it also gives us the option to put out something to add in applications that would be useful.
On the security point, have you become knowledgeable of the cell phone world? I mean, 5G's just been released. There's a lot of concern by some around Huawei.
Yeah.
Are you onto that? Can you give us a background as to what you've seen and what you think?
I think at the moment, just the standard way that you have, everyone has their phone set up with all of this information, all this personal data on one device, which is not super secure. And all of this information that Facebook has on us, all the information Google has on us, I think sort of we're already sort of just incredibly vulnerable with this huge broad attack service.
What's the worst case scenario? So Google has a crap load of information on me, as does Facebook. What could happen?
Well, at the moment, it's always when government and technology are happy and everything's going well, everyone thinks, well, what's the worry? But I mean, you look at if you were in Hong Kong and you were one of the guys that was leading the protests there and organising those, then you would be pretty worried, and you might have pretty legitimate concerns to be protesting about. But then they can go and dig through and find information, can definitely find where you are, find who you talk to, find information, in countries where it's homosexuality is illegal and the government wants to get that.
Yep.
And, you sort of say, oh, well, we're in New Zealand, we don't need to worry about things. Well, look at you, a few years ago, you would have said the US was crazy to worry about those sorts of things. And now it doesn't quite seem so crazy that the government might target people that are making them unhappy. So
the thing about these big companies having all their information, it's about. I mean, it sounds like what you're saying, and I guess there's no real answer to that because it is hypothetical.
Yeah.
But what you're saying is, from a governmental level, it could be dangerous. What about from what could Facebook, forget the US government, but what could Zuckerberg do with our information that could harm our? I mean, I can understand they can tailor advertising and annoy us to hell.
Yeah.
But what could that lead to in a way of harm or negatively impact our life?
Well, we're already seeing it in that increase in the divide between people and seeing how damaging that is to society when you look at that.
Like this stuff.
Yes, that guy, and how divided people come in, and then how their government essentially becomes paralysed because everybody is so against each other. There's no collaboration. There's no discussion between it, and that's the sort of the danger with the way that Facebook doesn't just.
But that means you're not saying it's about an individual. You're saying it's about the danger to society almost. I mean, like it's the fake news. It's what came out. It's Russia hacking in. It's so. And I'm not saying that we can answer this exactly. It's not necessarily about the danger necessarily, or the vulnerability to an individual, but once 90% of society is online, then society becomes vulnerable.
It does, and I think it can have an impact on an individual level. I mean, I got a lot of people in my family who have got very drawn into, I'd say, sort of fringe areas like conspiracies and things like that. And
any flat earthers?
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, there's some people that
our longest podcast ever, hour and 45 minutes with a flat earther.
Yeah. And I mean, on one level, I mean, the flat earth one I think is relatively harmless and amusing, but the vaccine one is less so, and a number of them are starting, and that really causes tension in families, and that on an individual level can be quite painful for people to deal with, and you're up against some very sophisticated, basically weapons grade propaganda and weapons grade kind of targeting, and so it can come through and actually at an individual level. And there's also but
that's not new. The delivery system is new.
The delivery system is new.
But that's not new. It's a little bit like when we talk about bullying.
Yeah.
I mean, like there was bullying at school.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
There was bullying phone calls being made to the kid at home. And now there's bullying text being sent. The bullying's not the new part. It's the delivery system.
It's the delivery and it's the reach of it. Because it used to be, there were always people who thought that the earth was flat. But there was a guy at the end of the street.
They're called morons.
Yeah. And you'd say, Trev would come in and you'd say, it's all a conspiracy. People just say, shut up, go away.
Yeah.
But now that guy is linked up with another guy in the
and
next
they have
town.
127,000 followers on Facebook.
And then they get that, and then Facebook, it's trying to always push you towards what makes you stay longer, and what makes you stay longer is more and more extreme
conflict.
And
absolutely there's an algorithm that points you towards conflict, because there is data that shows basically if you're annoyed and angry, you'll stay on for longer.
And if it's extreme, so if you're a mother and you're worried about, say, vaccines, and you search vaccine safety, until recently the top recommended video was a video showing a little girl before her vaccination and after, when she was diagnosed with autism. So you're up against that kind of manipulation, and that's incredibly you're very hard pressed to watch that and be like,
or you get educated.
Yeah.
And you know that the markers of autism happen in utero.
Yeah, no, I mean, but you're sort of up against this. People go to the internet to find information, and if that's what's being served up to them, it's not going to get everybody, but it will get a percentage, and then as that gets a certain mass, then people are like, well, a lot of people are saying it.
But it's like I'm having a lot of really interesting. My kids are learning about debating and about critical thinking, and I always go, well, what about this and what about this and what about this?
Yeah,
they're basically they have to, because I'm their dad.
Yeah.
And we've been talking about gender recently. It's a big one. Talk about gender this and gender that, and what does it mean? And if it means this, it means that. And if you go down this path, it means this. And then we start googling it, and when we start googling it, I say, but what I want to know is, what is the source information from that result you're watching? What is this? What is this? What is this? It's not just about here's 7 videos that agree.
Yeah.
It's about, where has that information come from? Is it opinion? Is it, is there scientific data or research to back that up? So and like you say, there is especially in that world of social media, social justice, there is a lot of opinion and feelings put out there in the place of science and facts. And
but it gets very hard to distinguish, because the sophistication of the conspiracies and these ideas is so much more, because you have such a bigger mass.
Well,
now you have some really good video production guys that will make really good, because when it was just a sort of a guy in his basement
with a tinfoil hat on,
with a tinfoil hat and a webcam, it's quite easy to be like, well, obviously he would say that. But when they're really professionally shot videos and professionally edited and put together,
and because it's monetizable,
it's
and
monetizable.
then they're making money off it, and then their production values get better.
Yeah, did you see the Netflix documentary, the Behind the Curve?
Yes, that was hilarious.
But you could sort of see that guy almost admit that he would have nothing else to do if he
Mark
left
Sargent.
it. Basically. I mean, it's a great one. But
if people haven't seen that, the best thing about the documentary is they do it quite well, and there is a specific tool that shows the curvature of the Earth. The rotation of the Earth.
Yeah.
So the Earth rotates 15 degrees every hour.
Yeah.
24 hours, 360 degrees.
Yep.
And they bought this massively expensive piece of equipment to measure it.
Yep.
And unfortunately, when they measured it to prove there was no spin, it showed there was 15 degrees every hour.
Yeah.
And then they put it inside like the lead line case, and there was 15 degrees of spin for the hour. And then they were obviously on a hot mic and didn't realize they were, and basically said, if this gets out, we're going to look really foolish.
Yeah.
And it got out. And then there was another one where the documentary ends, it's fantastic, with the guy trying to line up like bits of wood with a hole in them a mile apart. You know, if I hold the light here, it'll go through both places because it's flat.
Yeah.
And he goes, I'd have to hold it at 23 feet for there to be a curve. And the very last line is, can you lift the light up? Because you couldn't see it, and he lifts it up. How high is he holding it? Above my head. Yeah. Kind of saying, because there's a curve.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was brilliant. Behind the curve.
Yeah, no, that's really good. But just the thing is, when you go online, you're trying to look at sources and find information. It is really hard, and it's like there are, you know, it's like the anti-vax thing. There are medical doctors who are online and making videos and saying
really,
yeah,
reputable.
Well, I don't know if they're reputable, but
so I had just because this is in my house at the moment, the gender conversation. Yeah, you know, the one of the things I do, and this is the critical thinking thing. There's a woman called Dr. Deborah So. She is a PhD in I think it's neurological sexual behavior. Yeah. So she's like a brain scientist about sex. Right. And I show one of my kids the clip. Oh, there you go. Yeah. And she says there are two genders. Right. Before I show my kid the clip, and I'm not doing this to convince her, I'm doing the critical thinking thing. Yep, yep. I go, who do you think knows more about gender and sex and all that kind of stuff? The person who's a doctor in it, or you or me? Yeah. And of course my kid goes, well, she does. And I play the clip, and then he goes, there are two genders. Yeah. And I go, well, she says there's two genders. Now what do we talk about? Yeah. And it's just the ability to kind of go, there's information that might not align with some of the things that you know or think or you're thinking about or whatever. Yeah. And it's like I love religious conversations. Yeah. And I had one the other day with a young couple who are ardently have their belief, and that's great. Yeah. And the thing I always say is I could show you theologians with massive letters behind their name who have been doing this for 50 years who will say the exact opposite. Yeah. Now what? Yeah. You know, it's that, so you believe this or you think this or your research says this. Here, I'll show you research, an opinion that says the opposite. Now what do we do? Yeah, well, this is an interesting thing. I was just listening on the way in onto a podcast, and they called it said asking the obligation question. What's his name, Vic? But he was saying that essentially you have to ask people a meta question, which is if I, you believe this, if I could show you a document that proved it was opposite, would that change your belief? Yep. And that's the key. That's the kind of key thing that you need to have that conversation with people to see where they're actually coming from. That flat Earth one. Yeah. We have video, and we showed it to him in the flat Earth, of a helicopter across the other side of the lake disappearing below the water line. Right. Yeah. And I said to him, if we go up the road, up to where place, and we do this experiment, I said, I'll get a helicopter. Yep. I said, if we do this experiment and you see for yourself what you've seen there, will it prove to you? And he said, no. No, exactly. Because the saying is, for those that believe, no proof is needed. Yep. For those that don't, no proof is enough. Yep. And that's the thing. And the interesting thing is to flip that around and ask yourself that question. So, and then actually be able to answer it. So I would say if someone asked me what would it take to change my opinion on vaccines, I can tell you, if it was reported in several medical journals that there was a new breakthrough and they'd found a problem, and that was peer reviewed, and after a period of years it was still acknowledged, and the practice started to change, then I would be on board saying, It's also, and we've talked about this before on this podcast, it's also the idea about ideology versus intelligent debate. Yeah. And I've said this before, so I apologise to people who have heard me say it. We would all admit, if we have an ounce of intelligence, that we're not always right. Yeah. Whereas an ideologue always thinks they're right. Yeah. And I use the example, and I've used this before again, so I apologize, about writing pieces on my blog, pro-union pieces and then an anti-union piece. Yeah. And of course, when I wrote the pro-union piece, I was, a mouthpiece of Helen Clark and a voice of the left and the lefty liberal. And then when I wrote the anti, well, it wasn't anti, I disagreed with what the union was doing in this one instance. Yeah. I was a far right winger, and I was this, that, and the other thing. But that was when I wrote a piece called, Intelligent Debate versus Ideology. We acknowledge that we can't always be right 100% of the time. No one can. Yeah. So what if in this instance you're the wrong one, and the opposing view is the right one? it's going to happen. We're not right all the time.
No.
And people don't think that because they always think they've got the right answer, especially ideologues or zealots or people who are fighting the quote unquote good fight.
It's so hard because you can be right about that, and it's very hard to see how you move away from that because it's increasing this pushback against science and scientific thinking. And to me, the strength of scientific thinking is that it allows for itself to be wrong. In fact, it's always just a theory because it's always open to being disproved. And when it's disproved, it's done. Whereas it's an open-ended system that builds on itself, and that's why the last 150, 200 years is progressed so exponentially quicker than anything previously. I mean, it caused problems, no doubt, along the way. But that's the strength of it, is that open-endedness and that willingness to say, this is our best theory so far. Let's go out and find a new one. Whereas the problem with a lot of these beliefs is they're like, right, I've got the belief, and if the machine shows 15 degrees, there's something wrong with the machine.
But I think that, exactly. I think that's the point with the conspiracy theories. I mean, if there was the ability to, let's say, prove a flat Earth or prove or disprove vaccines, like prove that it was bad, that would be a massive medical and scientific breakthrough. So it makes no sense that the scientific and medical world are hiding those things. That would actually, if someone proved the Earth was flat, they would be the most famous person in the world for the rest of time.
Well, when I talk to people that are in that, then you start to realise that there's a whole different belief system behind even what knowledge is and what real and what's true. So we know that no amount of sort of facts will change people's minds on that, because they have an idea that, and that's where that kind of conspiracy, that's the important part of it, is they have this idea that there's this big monolithic block that controls what's seen, and they don't understand that there is a separation. And so it's a big monolithic block, but there are individual elements within it. So the thing I always think about is what was the nausea medicine that they used to give to pregnant women?
Thalidomide.
Thalamide. Right. So there's an example of essentially, pretty much this sort of a terrible thing that is given to women that causes, by a pharmaceutical company trying to make as much money, not doing enough tests, not really caring.
Yeah. But the very, very basics of that, because I know a little bit about, because I'm a science nerd, is thalidomide, and it's basically, thalidomide is actually 100% safe, but there's
delivery mechanism.
No, it's actually that there's two, when it comes to physics. There's I'm trying to refer the word, the molecule that thalidomide is. There's what's called right-hand and left-handed isomer. So that the chemical name, everything about them is identical, except they're like left-hand, right-hand, the way the molecules are arranged. Yes. I can't remember which one it is, but for the sake of argument, say the left-hand isomer of thalidomide is 100% safe. The right-handed isomer of thalidomide causes birth defects, huge issues. And so what was happening is, the quality control wasn't great, and so they're accidentally giving pregnant women the right-handed isomer as well as the left-handed isomer. The ones that got left-handed, perfectly fine, because it was a medicine for morning sickness. And so the ones that got right-handed isomer ended up with horrendous birth defects and stuff like that.
And so my thinking is that's a perfect example of where you have, in a sense, a conspiracy or a mistake, where the interests of money got ahead of the safety, and children were died. But when they realised it, doctors are horrified, obviously, that they've been prescribing it. The establishment realises there's court cases, everything's changed. It's all over the media, and it gets turned around. So it is a big ship that can, the sort of science community, the commerce, everything looks like this big chunk that has one thing and it's going in one direction. But actually, when it makes a mistake, it will course correct. Things will do it. And if there was something in these vaccine worries, with that much attention on it, it would be found and it would course correct.
So to kind of come full circle, I bet you didn't think you'd be talking about thalidomide when you came down here today, the boring phone. But to go full circle, it feels that we need a bit of a course correction in society at the moment. You like that?
That's good. That was really good. One? That was a really good one.
Because there does seem to be damaging and harmful practices happening with technology at the moment. Technology, is amazing. Too much technology. can be harmful.
Well, so if you wanted to do research on whether vaccines caused autism before smartphones or even before the internet, you would have to go talk to doctors, you have to go to the library, and you wouldn't be able to find that one article that says that it causes autism, because there would be so many others that would drown it out. But now you can
get straight to
like a sniper, you can find that one thing that proves
confirmation.
your point.
Jenny McCarthy.
Confirmation bias.
Thanks very much.
Yeah, and so the technology. So now when we've got 5 minutes, we can Google that little random. What is the little random spot that I've just noticed on my arm? And within 5 minutes, we can have self-diagnose that we're going to die of cancer.
That's a common one. But you are right that
so the course correction needs to happen in society. I mean, I think what you're doing with the boring phone is a version of the course correction.
Yeah.
But it feels to me, not to be too pessimistic, if we're heading towards the Titanic and we need to shift by 70 degrees, your phone is a 1 degree shift.
Wow, well, 1 degree would be generous.
But you know what I mean.
But what I kind of the metaphor I would use is I feel like we're on the front end of a breaking wave, which is the people realizing it. And I think that in 10 years, you wouldn't be talking to people about giving phones to kids. It just wouldn't be a question. It would be like the old days where people had, cocaine for toothache. We'll look back on it like it was nuts.
Right. So in 50 years from now, we'll be like, holy crap, they got given those dopamine products when they were 12?
Yeah, that's what I think that, and that's where I mean about the course correct is you're right, is a good way of tying it back, is that there are people that say, hang on a second, this is, I mean, you're already seeing in the United States the mental health for young people is really bad, and it's not just that. It's not just self-reporting. It's not just that they are more willing to talk about mental health. Hospital admissions for self-harm and suicides are way up.
Well, as Simon Sinek said earlier, the rate of depression is higher amongst people who use Facebook.
Yeah, and it is, and people are starting to realise, and it's starting to shift and move. But it's not something that happens, and it's difficult because cell phones are something that everybody uses. It's more like in the 1950s when everyone was smoking and if you were sort of, hang on a second, I don't want to stop smoking, and you say, well, your doctor says it's fine.
But the interesting thing is the difference between these analogies that we're pulling out and the technology like in a phone.
Yeah.
You don't need to smoke.
No.
You don't need to have a cigarette. You don't need to do those things. But what's going to happen in society, because the equivalent would basically be, we don't need this.
Yeah.
That would be the equivalent. What's going to happen in society to get us to a point where we're saying we don't need phones anymore, or smartphones with all our work in them? What's to come? Well, with that crest of that wave you're riding, what's at the bottom of that wave?
It's more just that we'll recognise that carrying around a little advertising machine connected to all of the games and noise and whiz bang is not a good thing to have, and people will just and what we're excited about is to get this out to people, because having used it myself and seen the huge difference it makes. Then you're like, well, that's just, this is so much better. It improves the whole tone of your life right across everything. And once you start getting a small group that go around, talk to their friends, you've got a spring in your step. What's good? What have you changed?
So you almost, not for you as a business, but for society, the best thing that would almost happen is people will start getting on board with what you're doing.
Yeah.
In other words, copying you.
Yeah,
because that would mean that there's a need for what's happening out there. Well, is this the only kind of boring phone, like not a dumb phone, not a smartphone on the market?
No, there are some others that are along a sort of similar lines. There's the Light phone, which has an e-ink display. It has mainly just calling and messaging.
Yep.
But there are others, and in fact, I'm not really too worried. There's going to be a big wave, is our view of it, and if we can be on the front and get pushed forward under
of course,
that would be wonderful. I think in 10 years it'll be everywhere, and it'll just be that you. This idea of humane technology that's actually designed to benefit the user, not to benefit the companies that are making money off it.
Well, the originator done well is very, very rarely surpassed by the imitator. So, you do it well, and you get out there on the crest of the wave first.
And also I think it's important that it comes from a group or people that are outside of the current model, because if Samsung or Apple said, it's hard for them, for starters, to say, hey, we'll sell you a phone, it's like an asbestos-free cereal. We'll sell you an advertising-free iPhone. Yeah. Like, hang on a second, what was the other one?
I know. You know what? I remember I was doing a promotion for a radio station, and we were in Waikato. We were in Hamilton. I remember the exact spot we were at a like an outside mall, like an area.
I used to do that all the time, didn't they?
And you'd go inside the mall, and I can remember this like it was yesterday, and there was a McDonald's in the mall, and and the advertising was like quarter pounder with cheese, now with 100% beef. Well, I was just like, what wasn't it before?
Yeah, and that's the thing. If you want to make a really big shift, it's difficult to do it without, because they're not going to want to bin their current product. So that's why I think it's that the advantage we've got is being independent and coming from right outside and having the actual whole phone.
Yeah.
So you have control of the whole ecosystem of it. That's the advantage that we have, and the integrity of saying up front, look, it is more expensive. We acknowledge it's a lot more expensive than the sort of $30 phone you might buy, but
still cheaper than a lot of smartphones.
It's a lot of fun, but once you buy it, that's it. We're not trying to sell you anything else.
Bring up the Facebook page, Jace. Let's just say, because it's time to wrap up now. I feel like we've had a good chat here.
That was a good circle.
Let's bring up our Facebook page as well, just because people want to know more about it. What they can actually do is go to our Facebook page, which is just DEPT of Conversation, Department of Conversation. And actually, you guys have been generous enough to give us one of the packs to give away.
Yeah.
So that pack that we're giving away is $5.49, $5.50.
Yeah, that's right.
And that includes the case and some other little bits and pieces.
Yeah, you've got the case and a set of good earphones to go with it.
Yep. So if people want to get into the draw for that, it's real super simple. We're going to do it for about another 10 days, I think it is. So it'll be up there for a wee while. Head to our Facebook page, head to my personal Instagram account, and all you need to do is either follow me on Instagram or like the Facebook page. Either of those two things will get you in the draw for that pack.
Cool.
And then if you want to tag people, each of those tags is a bonus entry.
Nice.
So if you like one page and you tag 10 people, that's 11 entries.
Sweet.
So that's what we're doing. So there it is there. Win a boring phone pack with $5.49 with Department of Conversation.
Yep.
Facebook, on my Instagram is just Pat Brittenden, and these are going to be travelling out about December-ish.
Yeah, December or before if we've got the actual handsets on order, so we'll turn it around as quick as we can, but December would be the outer edge.
And once you're, let's say the start of next year, end of this year, once you've kind of got the Kickstarter groups done,
yep.
When people want to then purchase a boring phone, I should ask, is it on, can you use it on any network? You put your own SIM in it?
In New Zealand you can,
okay.
Yep.
So once we've done this, once you guys have got your, how many did you sell on?
We sold about 85 on the Kickstarter.
So once you've got them out, and then someone wants to pick one up, what happens?
Well, as long as we can still get the base handsets, they'll be available. But it's actually we're finding that it's not quite so straightforward. We've managed to line some up. So we'll be doing that for as long as they're available, and then we're sort of thinking about the future, and hopefully we might step up a scale. We really think once we get this initial group of 85 to 100 people that have them, and they start talking to people, and we can send media to have a chat with people. We're hoping it's the start of something really where people go, actually this is.
And what's the goal? The goal is to have them in all the Vodafone stores. The goal is to have them just off your website, selling them, P2P. What's the plan?
Yeah, I mean, just to have them as available as possible, whatever that model is. We really would like to jump up. If you do in the order of 3,000, you can get them manufactured at the plant and get them spec. I mean, for starters, it doesn't really need to be the size it is. It could be sort of like the size of the old iPhones.
All right.
If you're not browsing on the internet, you don't really need a bigger screen. So there's a whole bunch of things that we'd like to do, and we really wanted just to demonstrate that we could get a physical product out to people, because that's not really our background.
So that at the moment, just a boring phone handset just by itself as is.
Yep.
$500.
Yep.
Nice. So that doesn't seem to be massively expensive.
No, it's for a medium spec smartphone with a good quality camera. It's got two cameras on it, a wide and a close-up one.
Nice. All right, so people can go to our Facebook page, as they've just heard, and find you from there, or just Google. And as we said earlier with Elon Musk, probably have to be careful of the boring company.
Yep.
But if you just Google the boring phone,
it comes up. We managed to get in there. So
knock Elon off the top of the search engine.
I think so. You might have to put phone in there. If you say company, then they'll probably he's still going away.
Hey Alex, thanks for coming in. It's been a blast.
Yeah, it's been really good.
For people who are in Dunedin as well, you're going to have a chat with the ODT shortly.
Sweet.
So there'll probably be something in the ODT tomorrow or on their website if they want to know more about it. But we've solved the world's problems again.
Yeah.
Thalidomide's done. Flat Earth's done.
Yep.
All those things.
I think people listening to that will be 100% convinced to change their ways.
And it's time for lunch.
Good stuff.